بأيدي سفرة كرام بررة قتل الإنسان ما أكفره من أي شيء خلقه من نطفة خلقه فقدره ثم السبيل يسره ثم أماته فأقبره ثم إذا شاء أنشره كلا لما يقض ما أمره فلينظر الإنسان إلى طعامه أنا صببنا الماء صبا ثم شققنا الأرض شقا فأنبتنا فيها حبا وعنبا وقضبا وزيتونا ونخلا وحدائق غلبا وفاكهة وأبا متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم فإذا جاءت الصاخة يوم يفر المرء من أخيه وأمه وأبيه وصاحبته وبنيه لكل امرئ منهم يومئذ شأن يغنيه وجوه يومئذ مسفرة ضاحكة مستبشرة ووجوه يومئذ عليها غبرة ترهقها قترة أولئك هم الكفرة الفجرة صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Thank you, Taha, for that very eloquent recitation. I would now like to request Muhammad Ibrahim for a recitation of poetry. Please recite aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala
Salawat.
Oh, Muslim. 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 They left you all alone, even those you had known. Their hearts were made of stone. Oh, Muslim. They couldn't realize that's you they agonized, that's you they left to die. Oh, Muslim. 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 You had come all the way to make sure they don't stray, but you they did betray. Oh, Muslim. Hassan knows of your plight. He's weeping day and night, wishing you reunite. Muslim, 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 Muslim. Like a lion you fought, the soldiers were distraught. You killed them on the spot. Muslim, how much they wounded you, but your power they knew, and how they then withdrew. Muslim, 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 Muslim. How painful was your death, you gasped for every breath. They then cut off your head. Muslim, they threw you from the roof. Nobody disapproved. They all looked so amused. Muslim, 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 Muslim. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad ajal farajah.
Thank you, Muhammad Ibrahim, for that very heartfelt recitation. I would now like to request Hajjat al-Islam Sayyid Sulayman Hassan to please lead the majlis. Please recite aloud salawat.
Surah Al-Fatiha. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As you know, today is the day of Arafah. Most of the times that we have in the Islamic calendar that are times of prayer and reflection, they are during the night. The night of the 27th of Rajab, or Laylatul Mab'ath. The eve of the 15th of Sha'ban. The nights of Qadr. But there is one day in particular that has a very special importance in terms of our prayer and our seeking from Allah the best of this world and the hereafter. And that is this day, the day of Arafah. The day is known as Arafah, and the place where people who are going for Hajj visit on the day of Arafah is known as Arafat. Sometimes because the words are similar and they are related, they are confused. Today is the day of Arafah, and on the day of Arafah, those people who go for Hajj, they will leave Mecca and they will go to a land called Arafat. And whether you are in Hajj, in Arafat, or you are in your own home or any other place, or performing ziyarah at the shrines of Ma'sumin alayhimus salam, the day of Arafah is a time of worship and a time of prayer. We recited just before this majlis one of the most comprehensive and beautiful du'as that we have learned from Ahlul Bayt, and that is Dua Arafah, which is narrated on the authority of our third Imam, Imam Hassan ibn Ali, Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salatu wassalam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi. And this dua is narrated on the day of Arafah, and it is recited on this day, but it is a very profound dua, and therefore it is advisable for us to take it in pieces and to study it and to think about it even outside of the day of Arafah, because it is really not possible for a person to fully digest and assimilate the words of a ma'soom in one sitting. Even if we were to divide it up and contemplate it, then maybe a lifetime of contemplation will not be enough to fully understand the depth of what the Imam is speaking of. But certainly we can make our best attempt to understand those words. One of the things that we learn from the du'as of Ahlul Bayt, dua of Abu Hamza al-Thumali, the dua that we recited on the day of Arafah, dua Kumair, all of the du'as of our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam in As-Sahifa As-Sajjadiyah, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Is we learn to question our assumptions and our wants and our desires. To learn not just to express what we are feeling, but to change what we are thinking and what we are feeling to admit a higher ideal than what we were familiar with or we were accustomed to until now. The principle that we learn from Ahlul Bayt is that whatever our state might be, whatever our feelings may be, whatever our thoughts might be, they are always able to be disciplined, to be deepened, and to be the recipient of divine enlightenment. And so the du'as of Ahlul Bayt are not simple du'as just praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His outward blessings or asking Allah for a list of things that we may want. They are not even du'as that ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for spiritual things. But rather, they are du'as that first and foremost, before they do anything else, they tell us to think, to contemplate, to look inwards, and to grow. So that when we ask Allah for something, we don't ask it for our own sake, but rather we ask it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are many things that I might want, but I want them because it is my desire. And then there is a very dangerous thing, which is that I might want something that is good and maybe is a divine favor, but I want that good thing and that religious value not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but for my own sake. Some years ago, I remember that there was a person who very much wanted to go and study Islam and devote their life to the service of Islam. And their parents had put some conditions before they would give their blessings for that person to serve the path of Islam. And so, one common response is that my parents are preventing me from serving the path of Allah. Because if I were to go and study, then I would become a scholar and I would be able to teach, I would be able to write, I would be able to learn about my religion and guide other people towards my religion. And if my parents don't let me do that, or if they put conditions, then they are an obstacle in that path. But what is wrong with this perspective is that that person assumes that what they want, and maybe where they think they will be the most useful, is something that is their primary goal. But let's say that I want to give my life to the study and the teaching of Islam. Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have a shortage of people who have studied Islam? Or does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have a shortage of people who can spread Islam? Does He need me to add my talent and my intellect in order to save His religion? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He can turn even the schemes of His enemies into a means of guidance. And so we look in history, for example, that Fir'aun was the one who challenged Musa alayhi salam to a public contest to see who had the greater power. It wasn't Musa alayhi salam who said that call all of your advisors and all of your magicians from all of the regions under your control, bring them so I can prove to you that I am a prophet. That powerful government with all of his influence and wealth and military power, Fir'aun, he said that we will establish a day, we will call all of our prominent citizens to witness, and we will call our magicians, and the Quran calls them magicians, but they were the scholars and the experts of that society with religious and scientific knowledge. They were to be brought to try to demonstrate the superiority of the power of Fir'aun. So there was time and money and effort that was spent by the most powerful government of that time to absolutely eliminate any power or any influence that Musa alayhi salam might have. And if the government didn't do that, then the miracle of Musa alayhi salam, it might not have had such a powerful effect. It might not have been as immediately recognized and understood throughout the length and breadth of the kingdom of Fir'aun, and it might not have led to, first of all, the liberation of Bani Israel, and also the guidance of even those powerful followers of Fir'aun who were his own officials and employees and the magicians. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can take Fir'aun and make Fir'aun spend his treasury to spread the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without realizing it and without wanting it, if Allah can make his prophet and the savior of his people eat and live and be raised in the palace of Fir'aun, and then spread his message to the horizons with the budget of Fir'aun, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala need you or me to save his religion? That is maybe something that I am fooling myself into thinking that this is important. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need me to do a specific task in order to hold the fort and to protect and to preserve his religion. What Allah wants from me, not needs, but asks and wants and seeks from me, is my willingness to be at service where, when, and how needed by him. Whether it be what I want, or whether it be something that might be very different from my first choice and preference. And so if, for example, I want to devote myself to Islam in one way, and then my parents put certain conditions, is the proper perspective to say that my parents are preventing me from serving Islam? Or is the proper perspective for me to say that now I need to honor my parents and either seek their blessings or then adjust what I want so that I am able to honor my obligation to my parents and also able to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way that I am able. There's one example that we have from the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. And as you know, in the time of the Prophet, it was a very important need for people to volunteer themselves to defend the Muslims, because the Muslims were under attack from their enemies within Arabia, those powerful people whose interests were at risk because of the message of Islam, as well as from external enemies, because the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire and many people outside of Arabia, they also did not want a power center to develop that would then compete with them or take away their tax revenue or harm their trade routes. And so there were enemies on all sides, and it was a constant need of the Muslim community for people to volunteer themselves to stand up for the defense of Islam. And a person, a young man, comes to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says that I want to do jihad and offer my life in the way of Allah. And I have strength and I am ready for it, I'm volunteering. Now you would expect that because of that need and because of that threat from the enemies within Arabia and outside of Arabia, the Prophet would immediately say, yes, come, here's your weapon, go. Whenever there is a shortage, then any army, they will recruit whoever comes. They certainly will not turn away well-qualified candidates. But then when the Prophet spoke to that person, that young man said that I have two old parents, and they think they need me. يَزْعُمَانِ أَنَّهُمَا يَأْنِسَانِ بِي. Not, I think that they need me. But maybe in my mind, they're still young enough to be able to take care of their own affairs. They're able to walk. They're able to do what they need. They think that my presence with them is important to them. What should I do? And if you want to understand the true message of Islam, the true nature of the priorities that were taught by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the true spirit of jihad itself, when it came in this answer for that one young person who wanted to sacrifice his own life for God. The Prophet said that for you to spend one night with your parents and for them to have that uns and that pleasure of your company, that is going to have more blessing for you than for you to spend an entire year in hardship and at risk to your property and to your life in the service of Islam. Where is the glory and the excitement and the adventure? It might be in that military expedition. That's where you're going to get fame. That's where you're going to get to travel and have excitement and maybe feel like you are serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it is only an obligation if you are directly attacked. And if you are not directly attacked, and it isn't a personal obligation for me to go and to stand in defense of Muslims under attack, then even if there is no fame and there is no glory and there is no excitement, for me to be with my parents has a greater blessing than for me to even give my own life and risk my own life in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because this is the spirit of jihad. Not to choose what I want, but rather to choose what Allah wants. And the strengthening of Islam is through the strengthening of our family bonds. The strengthening of our devotion to our parents and to our relatives and to our friends and to our community. So that if we are ever called upon to sacrifice, then we know the value of what we are sacrificing for. And a person who is willing to throw away all of their own plans for the sake of their parents will be a better mujahid if they ever called upon to fight than somebody who is willing to turn their back on their parents and their parents' wishes for the sake of their own desires. That is the spirit of jihad in Islam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And this is what we learn from Ahlul Bayt. Today we are remembering the first martyr of Karbala. And according to some narrations, Muslim ibn Aqil was one of 9 children of just one person, Aqil, the brother of Imam Ali, who were martyred with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imagine what kind of devotion it was and what kind of love it was that not one member of the family, but 9 members of one family, the descendants of Aqil, his children and his grandchildren, they offered themselves for the service of Islam. This was the spirit that came from the teaching and the practice of Ahlul Bayt. The very first battle of Islam, when the Muslims were outnumbered 3-1, the battle of Badr, which took place in the month of Ramadan. In that battle, the Muslims were outnumbered by the mushrikeen of Mecca 3-1. And not only were the Muslims outnumbered, but the Muslims, even with their small number, according to some narrations, 313 people against almost 1,000 from Quraysh, even with their small numbers, the Muslims did not have enough weapons and enough armor to protect themselves. It was a small army and a poorly equipped army. They didn't fight because of their strength in numbers, and they didn't fight because of their superior weaponry. They fought with their superior faith and reliance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that first battle, the Prophet did not send the Muhajirin or the Ansar. But who were the people that he sent first? They were the closest members of his own family. Ubaidah ibn Harith, who was martyred in that battle. His uncle Hamza, and his cousin and his brother Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In that battle, the Prophet lost his cousin Ubaidah ibn al-Harith. He was martyred. Then in the battle of Uhud, once again, it was the Prophet's uncle Hamza who was martyred. In the battle of Mu'tah, which was on the frontier of the Muslim land facing the Romans, the Prophet's beloved cousin and the brother of Imam Ali, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, was martyred. So in these battles, we see that the greatest number of martyrs and the greatest sacrifice, it came from those who were the nearest and the dearest ones of the Prophet. They gave the most in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These were just the martyrs. But if you look at every other type of sacrifice, it was also those who were closest to the Prophet who gave the most. Lady Khadija, she gave all that she possessed in the service of Islam. The Prophet's beloved daughter, Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. She not only took care of her own household, but she devoted her possessions, her time to teaching, serving, helping the families of the poor, widows, orphans, and the needy of Medina. So much so that she didn't have enough time for the ibadah and the worship of Allah that she wished to do. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ gave her tasbih of Fatima Zahra, because she wanted to do abundant dhikr, and yet she had devoted herself so much to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that she didn't have the time to do the dhikr that she wanted. And so the Prophet said, let me give you a gift. If you say after every prayer, Allahu Akbar 34 times, and Alhamdulillah 33 times, and Subhanallah 33 times, that is only 100 words of dhikr. but you will be written in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you are doing dhikr abundantly, as if you are doing dhikr constantly. Her heart was in abundant worship, but because she devoted herself to where there was a greater need for the Muslims, she was not able to find the time to do the worship that she wished to do. So this spirit was there in terms of the life of Ahlul Bayt, in terms of their sacrifice with their time and with their money and with everything that they possessed. Now normally, when people contribute to something, then they also want the recognition and the authority that comes with their sacrifice. If I devote myself to building a masjid, and I contribute my time and I contribute my money, then I will expect that I will have a position of authority within that institution. But what we see from Ahlul Bayt is that although they gave everything, the one position that was the most desirable, Allah said that it is prohibited for those near and dear ones of the Prophet. So many of you have heard that it is prohibited for Ahlul Bayt to take sadaqah or zakat. Well, one of the wisdoms is that it was a government job to be a revenue collector. You go and you collect the revenue from people, and you also have a salary from that revenue that you collect. This was a job that many people, they came and they asked the Prophet to give them the power to do that and to earn an income, a stable, a steady, a dignified income for themselves. This was almost a benefit that is coming, even though the intention is for Allah, but it is a material benefit. It is a benefit that is coming, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that those members of my family who are descendants of Hashim, Banu Hashim, they are prohibited from taking a benefit of that sadaqah. So it is a reminder that when we give in the way of Allah, then the reward and the recompense that we seek is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is not of this world. And that is the spirit of the sacrifice of Muslim ibn Aqil. He was the son of Imam Ali's brother Aqil. So he was the cousin of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein's father was Imam Ali, and Muslim's father was Aqil, and Imam Ali and Aqil ibn Abi Talib, they were brothers. Muslim ibn Aqil was also married to Imam Hussein's sister Ruqayya. One of the daughters of Imam Ali, her name was Ruqayya, and she was the wife of Muslim ibn Aqil, the sister of Imam Hussein. So he was very closely related in family terms, but also in his courage and in his character to Imam Hussein. Now imagine somebody that is that close in terms of family ties and in terms of his courage and knowledge and character. And Imam Hussein, he sends him as his ambassador to Kufa, which was under the power of the Umayyads, a risky and a very dangerous place. And before Muslim ibn Aqil reaches Kufa, he hears about the efforts of the Umayyads to ensure that Imam Hussein will not be able to enter the city, and their conspiracy to maintain their grip on the city. So he knew that he was going to a very dangerous mission. But the spirit that we find in the practice of Ahlul Bayt, that was what gave the motivation to Muslim ibn Aqil to proceed to Kufa and to invite people to follow Ahlul Bayt. And we see the benefit of that in that Kufa became a city that was known for its love of Ahlul Bayt. That seed, that first spark, it was placed when Imam Hussein sent his ambassador and he called people towards the path of Ahlul Bayt. Kufa saw many difficult situations, both in the time of Imam Hussein and in the years afterwards during the time of our other Imams. But that spark of love for Ahlul Bayt, that was placed within the heart of the city of Kufa, and from that time until today, it has been a center of the teachings and the message of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhimus salatu wassalam. Sallu ala Muhammad. So the most important lesson we learn from the life of Muslim ibn Aqil is that when it comes to service of Islam, it's not because I want to do it, that I will do what I want to do, but rather because it is what is needed, that I will offer my life, my talents, my abilities, my resources, my wealth, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me. And then when I have given it, I don't lay claim to it and say, oh, I did this, therefore I should get this recognition or this benefit. And most beautifully you will see that illustrated in the final moments of the life of Muslim ibn Aqil. That fateful day, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, when his host and his protector Hani ibn Urwa was martyred by Ibn Ziyad, Muslim ibn Aqil called his followers who had pledged their allegiance to Imam Hussein that this is the time to honor your pledge and come to my support. And first, many people came, but then the government began its whispers and its propaganda that the army of Yazid is just around the corner. The army of Syria is going to come and they will kill anybody who supports Imam Hussein. And people said, let us go back to our homes. Until it is said in some narrations that by the time that Maghrib prayer came, only 10 people were with Muslim. He led the prayer in the Masjid of Kufa with 10 people. And when the prayer was finished, he was alone in the darkness of a strange city. But Muslim, who was there with his 2 sons and who was now alone without protector, did not have a single thought for his own safety or the safety of his family. His only thought was that I had given a message that thousands of people, oh my Imam, have pledged their allegiance. Come to Kufa because the city is ready to obey you and to follow you. And the only thought in the mind of Muslim was, how can I send a message to my Imam? How can I send a message to Mecca that, oh my Imam, oh my master, the city that I described to you is no longer there and you are not safe. Ibn Ziyad sent 300 soldiers under the leadership of Muhammad ibn Ash'as to arrest Muslim. They came to the house of Taw'a, a believing lady where Muslim had spent that night. And it is said that when Muslim heard the sound of the weapons of those approaching soldiers, he smiled and he said that, oh Allah, I am ready for martyrdom, but allow me to send a message to my Imam, so that I cannot be said to have failed him in the mission that he entrusted to me. Muslim left the house of Taw'a. He faced those soldiers single-handedly, such that Muhammad ibn Ash'as sent a message to Ibn Ziyad that I need reinforcements. And Ibn Ziyad said that are 300 people not able to arrest a single person? And Muhammad ibn Ash'as said that perhaps you have forgotten that this is a relative of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He is the ambassador of Hussein ibn Ali. Even 300 are not enough to defeat him. When Muslim was finally arrested, injured, it is said that some people saw sadness on his face and tears flowing from his eyes. They said to him that, oh Muslim, you have embarked on a very great struggle, and people like you should not grieve if they face the risks of what you set out to do. Those people thought that maybe Muslim was crying because of his own death that would soon take place. But Muslim said, you have misunderstood my grief. I have no fear for my own life, and I have no fear of death, because it is martyrdom, and it was my prayer. My tears are because I know that my Imam has set off from Mecca, and he is now going to be entering on the journey to Kufa, and I fear for his safety. I fear for his family. I fear for his mission. My tears are not tears of worry for my martyrdom, but my tears are tears of grief for the suffering of the family of the Prophet and for the danger that faces my Imam Hussein ibn Ali. Ibn Ziyad said that, O Muslim, whatever you say and whatever you do, you will be martyred. But Muslim said that I only ask that I be allowed to perform a 2 rak'ah prayer and that I be able to give my final salam to my Imam. And so when he was taken onto the roof of the governor's mansion in Kufa, the sword of the executioner was raised above the head of Muslim, and Muslim turned his head in the direction of Mecca. He said, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Oh my Imam, oh my master, please forgive me if I was not able to carry out the task that you set me to accomplish. I offer you my greetings and I offer my life in your path. And on that journey, it is said that through a miracle, Imam Hussein found out about the martyrdom of Muslim through divine inspiration. He stood up with tears in his eyes and he said, Wa alayka salam ya Muslim. O Muslim, my greetings to you. You have fulfilled your covenant and we are soon journeying towards the same path. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Ya Allah, Muhammad. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this majlis and this remembrance on our behalf. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow all of us to dedicate our lives to the service of Islam and the service of the path of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhimus salam. We are coming now within a few weeks towards the days of Muharram. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us life, to give us health, and most importantly to give us the tawfiq and the honor to be able to remember and commemorate the sacrifices of Imam Hussein and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam, ourselves and with our families and with our communities, so that our tears and our intentions and our prayers can once again be conveyed to our Prophet and to his family, and we can stand in service of the mission of our Prophet and Ahlul Bayt. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Because it is time for Maghrib, inshallah, we will prepare for Salat.